Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming along to today's meeting of the Planning Applications Committee. If I can move straight onto the agenda. Item number 1 is the evacuation procedure. We've not been informed of any practice alarms going off, so if we hear any noises, we'll treat it for real. So if we can vacate the chamber from either side of the chamber, down the stairs, not using the lift, and meet across the road by the Yorkshire Bank. If anybody needs any assistance in getting out, let us know and we'll make sure they get that assistance. It's also a good time just to remind people to put your phones on silent or turn them off. Yeah, normally I'm the one that gets caught out. And we don't have anybody from the public filming today's meeting, although the council does film all of its meetings now and then stream them out onto YouTube after the meeting. Item number 2 is to receive apologies. I think we've had some from Councillor Ian Lloyd, haven't we? Item number 3 is to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of February. You happy that I sign those? Item number 4 is to receive any declarations of disclosable pecuniary and other interests in accordance with the Members' Code of Conduct that's not already printed on the agenda. None? Thank you. Item number 5 are any declarations of contact that members may have had. None? Thank you. I don't know whether it will pick me up or not, but item number 6 is the applications that we've got in which the public have indicated a desire to speak. So if I just run through that process for those that haven't been here before. The officers will present the report. Following on from that, I'll take the speakers that are listed. There's a time limit of 3 minutes on making your presentation. However, at the end of that, members may want to seek any points of clarification arising from what you've said. Again, following on from that, officers may or may not come back in. And then once somebody's moved and seconded something, then the committee can debate the application and hopefully reach a decision today. On most occasions we do, but sometimes things are deferred for site visits or extra information, such things like that. So that then will take us on to item number 1, which is the Hare and Hounds Lane, Nuneaton. Claire, you're doing both of these, are you? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. This application is for the erection of 4 terrace dwellings on a garage court at the end of Hare and Hounds Lane, Nuneaton. The site is surrounded by residential properties, as you can see from the plan before you, and currently has 14 garages on it. As you will see from the agenda, there have been 8 letters of objection to the proposal, generally on the grounds of traffic, safety, drainage, noise, loss of privacy and light. Your officers consider that the key issues with this application are the principle of residential development on the site, the impact on residential amenity, the impact on visual amenity, the impact on highway safety, and other matters. In relation to the principle of residential development on the site, The land is brownfield land and is in a sustainable location, and it does make a small contribution towards meeting the borough's housing need. The site, as I've previously said, is surrounded by residential properties on all sides and does comply with the Residential Design Guide in relation to separation distances between habitable room windows on 3 of the sides. So in relation to this point here, along the back and along the side. The property most affected by the proposal is number 9 Hare and Hounds Lane. This is located to the south of the site. The property is a tall bungalow with rooms in the roof space, as you can see from the photo before you. These rooms are served by side-facing roof lights that overlook the site. They are positioned in the roof slope so that views out across the site are achieved. Keeps going into the wrong place. So in an effort to secure good standards of amenity, both for the nearby residential properties and the development, number 9 is located here in relation to the front of these properties. The development has been designed with triangular bay windows to both the ground and first floors of the habitable room windows, with only one side of the triangle having a view out. This can be seen here on plots 1 and 2. So the windows are here and here, with a blank on the other side. And plots 3 and 4, the window is here and here, with the blank on the opposing side. This eliminates any direct overlooking from the site towards number 9, which is this property here. And this effectively means that separation standards are to be assessed in relation to a blank wall rather than habitable room standards. A condition is suggested on the addendum to prevent the installation of additional windows on the blank side of the triangular bay to secure the long-term protection of privacy on the site. The centre of the roof lights in number 9 to the front elevation of the proposed development achieves approximately a 10-metre separation. The standards set out in the Residential Design Guide for habitable room windows to blank elevations are actually 12 metres. So whilst this is 2 metres short of the normal standard, the roof lights face north, so loss of light at this orientation is considered acceptable. In relation to the impact on visual amenity, one of the core planning principles set out in the NPPF is to always secure high-quality design and a good standard of amenity for existing and future occupants of land and buildings. There is a mix of residential styles in the area, as set out before you on these photographs, with both traditional semi-detached properties and the more recent detached property on Hare and Hounds Lane, and detached houses from the 1970s to 80s surrounding the rest of the site. It is considered that the proposed 4 dwellings are large enough to create a grouping of their own, and therefore there are no strong grounds to refuse planning permission on the design, character, or cohesiveness of the development. In relation to highway safety, the site is served by a narrow road, single lane in width, shown on the photos on the screen before you. Warwickshire County Council have been consulted on the proposal and they do not object to the scheme. They consider that with 14 garages on the site at present, there is the potential for 28 vehicle movements per day based on a vehicle being taken out of the garage each day and returned later on in the evening. They acknowledge that the proposed development is likely to result in fewer vehicle movements associated with the site now than the current proposal, and this therefore is beneficial to the single lane access. The plans show a large turning area here to cater for larger vehicles, and overall highways do not object to the scheme, subject to the imposition of conditions as set out on the agenda. There are 2 other matters of note relating to archaeology and coal. Warwickshire County Council Archaeology have commented that the application site is in an area of significant archaeological potential in connection with the area of medieval pottery production at Chilvers Coton. Archaeological excavations some time ago in 1971 identified 8 13th century pottery tile kilns and a further 6 14th century pottery kilns on sites lying adjacent and quite close to the site. The county don't object to the development, but a condition is added to secure the proper recording of the archaeological finds. The Coal Authority have commented that the application site falls within the defined development high risk area. Consequently, within the application site and surrounding area, there may be coal mining features and hazards which need to be considered in relation to the determination of this application. They state that historic, unrecorded underground coal mining activities may have taken place beneath the site but at a shallow depth. The coal mining risk assessment that has been submitted with the application has been scrutinised by the Coal Authority. They do not object to the development and support the recommendations in this assessment, which is to carry out further intrusive ground investigations in the form of boreholes to investigate the current ground conditions and the depth and condition of shallow coal seams. A condition is added to secure this. It's considered, therefore, that the development is acceptable, subject to the imposition of conditions as set out on the agenda and addendum, and the recommendation is therefore one of approval. Thank you.
The committee for your time this evening. The proposal before you provides efficient and appropriate use of a brownfield site close to public transport links and a number of services and facilities for day-to-day living. The site is becoming increasingly underused and is in an increasing state of disrepair as a result. Its present use inadequate to support its upkeep long term. It's reached the end of its useful life and is in need of a new chapter. A number of concerns have been raised by residents. These primarily focus on the effect on Hare and Hounds Lane itself and their living conditions. In terms of access, we've worked to respond to initial questions raised by the Highway Authority, with it notable that Hare and Hounds Lane does not presently benefit from any turning space at its end. This proposal would facilitate the informal turning of vehicles, offering betterment on the existing situation. It would comfortably cater for 2 parking spaces per dwelling as well, wholly adequate when considering each dwelling only provides for 2 bedrooms. The effect of the construction phase on the use of the lane is also recognised. However, it would be incumbent on the developer to ensure that the condition of the lane is no worse following development than it is now. And a positive working relationship with those affected would no doubt be maintained to respond to particular concerns and resolve any difficulties that may arise. The overall use of the lane is noted by the Highway Authority to decrease under the proposals, such that there should be no concern in respect to safety for other users. The dwellings have been designed with respect to the separation standards set out in the Council's guidance. Distances between habitable windows ensure that there is no undue overlooking of internal or external spaces. This is achieved in part by the contemporary elements, including the oriel windows, to the design, which carry the traditional scale and pattern of the development along Hare and Hounds Lane, yet make subtle reference to the surrounding 1970s detailing and present a design which fits the 21st century, all whilst respecting local vernacular. The careful placing of openings would ensure no undue overlooking effects, with amended plans secured in line with the officer's requests. This proposal would count towards the Council's housing supply, it being a windfall site which forms a component of the housing trajectory. With the supply presently below 5 years, approving permission this evening will represent your continued efforts in seeking to provide homes that existing and future residents of the borough need. It should also be noted that the type of housing presented fits a market for those earning too much to qualify for social housing, yet too little to afford the available housing stock elsewhere on the open market. In essence, it is affordable by way of its size and would suit many first-time buyers looking to stay within the area. Accordingly, we ask that the committee grant permission. Thank you.
Claire, anything you need to come back on? No, just before we move on, Claire did mention one thing about being on the addendum, it's not. It's actually in the body. It's in the body of the report, so it's page 16, paragraph 7. Right then, so, to enable debate to take place, can I move the recommendation? Is that seconded? Oh, sorry, I didn't ask if there was any points of clarification, did I? Was there any? No, okay. Any member? Councillor Longden.
When I read this report, I was amazed at the nil response or the type of response put in by Warwickshire County Council. They must have gone up there with very, very, very dark sunglasses on. It's a ridiculous place to build houses at the back. It's on backland as far as I'm concerned. It's not wide enough. It's hardly wide enough to do what it's supposed to do now. It was in the past various things. There's an industrial estate next to it as well. It comes out onto Heath End Road at probably one of the worst junctions in the borough on Bermuda Road, and when the Bermuda Bridge opens, it's going to be a nightmare looking to the future. And none of that seems to have impacted at all upon the county council, and yet they stopped other people who changed things, particularly with the church, on the fact that they couldn't get the splay. They wanted to shift telegraph poles and BT boxes and goodness knows what. And yet you come out of here, there is a splay, there is some clearance, but you also got traffic turning left from out of the Raywoods, very close to it. It's a ridiculous proposal as far as I'm concerned, and I'm not going to have any truck with it, I'm afraid. It's just too silly for words, in my opinion. And I'm amazed, absolutely amazed, that the County Council wants to do what or is going to allow this sort of thing to go ahead. Heath End Road at peak times as well is absolutely chock-a-block. It's nose to tail down there. You can't get in, you can't get out. Ridiculous proposal this is. Somebody's just trying to cash in on a bit of backland as far as I'm concerned, and I won't vote for it.
Concerns about this. I mean, it's a long time since I've been down Hare and Hounds Lane, but I mean, one issue that strikes me, as Councillor Longden has already said, it's a very busy road. What if you're wanting to turn right or left into their Hare and Hounds Lane and there's a vehicle coming out? I see problems there. I can't really remember whether Hare and Hounds Lane is sufficiently narrow just for one vehicle all the way along. I think there's bits where perhaps two vehicles can get past. Are all the existing residents going to be parking their cars off the road? I don't know what they do at the moment, but it's going to be even more difficult with potentially perhaps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cars coming past the existing houses. I think has been alluded to. I don't know what highways were doing when they went there, but they certainly haven't mentioned the issues I would pick up. Thank you, Chair.
As you can see from the photos on the screen in front of you, this is just a small section. The two at the bottom are of views taken along Hare and Hounds Lane. So the majority of properties that are the more traditional ones along Hare and Hounds Lane do have places to park vehicles off of the access road. You can see that the access road is narrow, single width carriageway only. This is number 9, which is the new property, and has got space for parking in front of it. And if I go to the other plan there, which shows the access road down, it is actually wider at the top end, adjacent to the pub, than what it is outside of the traditional terrace properties further along the site.
Thank you. Councillor Lloyd.
I must admit, Going, although I live in Bedworth, I travel past that area going up to play cricket for the Cabbage for about 30 years. And I've always felt that area, and when they put lights in and round the area to go down the Raywoods, it is a monster, a little area. We're coming off that area, and to build in there, I just thought that was a bit... We do seem to have a very, very strong views from councillors regarding this matter, with different view to the officers in the county. Can I move then we go and have a look at this place? I move it we go for a site visit. I think it might be important for us to do so because this is well, it is. I don't think it's the right place to build what they want to build there, but I'm quite open to go out and let committee. So go and have a look at it and get a. Because we have got councillors sitting here with very, very strong views and very thing who talk to us about these areas. It wouldn't hurt us, I don't think, on this occasion to go and have a look at it, and so we can make a good judgment on it.
I actually sympathise with a lot of what Councillor Longden and Pomfret have said. And this is where I've kind of got the head versus heart aspect on this one, because my heart is kind of with Councillors Longden and Pomfret on this one. If I was starting from scratch, would I be putting these houses down there? The answer would be no, not in its current form. But my head is saying, actually knowing the area, that I don't think if we were to refuse this, we would be upheld at appeal. The principle of development down that road has been established. The County Council's argument, although it may not work in practice, about there being 14 garages, 28 potential movements in and out, 4 houses equals less movements, it is logical on paper. Whether it's logical in practice, I have my reservations about. But my head is telling me, if we refuse this, they'd go to appeal and they would probably win because there is a preference for brownfield development. The principle of development down that road has already been established. So I'm on a sticky wicket with this one because I really want to vote against it in some respects. But I think if I do so, I wouldn't have anything really to hang my hat on. I don't think, from my perspective, a site visit is going to actually change that perspective one way or the other, if I'm honest. But I understand, and it's a perfectly legitimate position for councillors Longden and Pomfret to be in, and if I could find a legitimate reason in planning terms to vote with what they're saying, I would do. But I can't. That's the problem with this application. If you're looking at a plan of Nuneaton now, you would not build down there. I don't think sensible planning wouldn't tell me you would build a road like that with only that width access, but we've got what we've got. That's the problem, and we can't go back in time and change it. So, reluctantly, I think my head is going to rule my heart on this one and vote for it.
Any other member? Councillor Beaumont.
Chairman, I walk fairly regularly around some parts of Red Deeps and areas like that where I see similar concrete areas which are crying out to either be cleared and used and so on. Very similar to this. And I must say this seems to meet a need in the borough for affordable housing, and at the same time takes away land which is going to be in no time at all pretty derelict. The garages are falling out of use. It's not attractive enough to park your car in there, and this is a bit of a game changer for this small area of development. So I'm really quite in favour of this, and I do wish we could have a bit more of it. I can see even round Bulkington, which I represent, some areas which are similar and would support affordable housing. So I must say I'm instinctively in favour rather than opposed to this development. And I'm not surprised that the County Council doesn't object, because the traffic movements up and down there, if it was a thriving set of garages, would be far worse than what is being proposed here. Every house along the lane seems to have solved its parking problems by having a parking area on the front of their developments. And I just can't really raise an objection to that narrow section, because where you need the width, where you need people to pass each other, that's in front of the Hare and Hounds, and I really can't see a substantial objection to the development. So I did indicate to second the officer's recommendation, and I would vote to support it.
I'll take it then that you're seconding, because I didn't see anybody else second. If there's no other member, I'll have Councillor Longden indicate again.
The garages have been falling into disrepute and disrepair for donkey's years. I don't know if anybody's actually using one of them now. I don't even know if there's one car down there, let alone any others. And part of the problem is because of its remoteness and the access in and out of Heath End Road. And people just don't want vehicles down there, leaving their cars down there when they can put them outside the front of their houses. And that's probably the same all over now. We've had some of these hammerheads and stuff like that where people just won't park their cars these days. So it's not a question of the amount of traffic in and out there being up to 28 cars because of the garages. It's just not the case, because they're not in use, not that I know of anyway, and they haven't been in use for donkey's years. It's just a place that's been there, and I bet you wouldn't get any takers down Heath End Road if those garages were pristine. I bet they wouldn't put their cars in it.
I'm totally with Councillor Wilson on this. I agree with quite a lot of what's been said on both sides of this site. I don't see a site visit is going to change anything, because after the site visit we're still left with the same problem, that if we oppose this and we don't have good grounds for opposing it, it'll go to appeal and we'll lose that anyway. So although I'm in the same place as Councillor Wilson, my heart is saying really it's not a good enough development, but my head says we're going to have to vote for it, because it really wouldn't stand up on appeal.
Okay. To take the vote on the site visit, because it was moved and seconded, and we'll see where we go from that. It's been moved and seconded that we have a site visit to enable us to look at the highway implications in relation to the access to the site. Yeah? All those in favour of the site? Right. And against? Abstentions? Sorry? Yeah. In that case, just to ensure that we've got all the information, I'll use my casting vote to support the site. We will carry out a site visit prior to our next meeting. We can ask people to move on to our second item, 92A Wheat Street. There.
Thank you. This application is for the variation of conditions 2, 3 and 4 of Planning Permission 34172 for 92A Wheat Street, Nuneaton. It is to allow changes to the hours of use, to increase the floor area of the gym. Condition 2 is a schedule of approved plans. Condition 3 relates to the hours of operation, and Condition 4 relates to the authorised floor area of the gym. Please note there is an amended recommendation on your addendum. As members will see from the agenda and addendum, there have been letters of objection to this scheme and a petition. The objections mainly relate to noise and disturbance from the gym, traffic and parking, and already breaching the currently agreed hours of operation. Officers consider that the key issues with this application are the impact on the town centre and sequential test, the impact on residential amenity and noise, and the impact on highway safety and car parking. In relation to the impact on the town centre and the sequential test, the proposed use is classified as a main town centre use in the National Planning Policy Framework, by way of it being a health and fitness centre. Whilst this is not located in a town centre location, it is edge of centre and therefore is the next sequentially preferable location. The principle of having such a use in this location has already been established by the granting of the original planning permission. So what has to be assessed now is whether the proposed amendments have a significant enough impact on this original decision to warrant refusal. The proposal is to increase the floor area of the gym from the 45 square metres permitted by Condition 4 to 232 square metres. This is still less than 40% of the total area of the building, with approximately 1/3 of the first floor remaining as office and storage space. The gym is located at the first floor, and all of the ground floor remains as B1 and B8 as part of the previous permission. Taking this into account, it's considered that the proposed size increase is reasonable, and the fact that it's in the next sequentially preferable location to the town centre, the proposal's impact on the town centre will be minimal. It's considered that the proposal wouldn't cause any significant harm to the vitality or viability of the town centre. In regard to the impact on residential amenity, there are a number of residential properties to the rear of the site which are on Cooper Street backing onto the site. There are also properties on Wheat Street which front onto the site, and those on Regent Street who are also close by to the side. The proposed use will take place on the first floor of the existing building, and there are to be no external works to facilitate this use. Officers consider that there may be some minor increase in vehicle movements. However, it is considered that given the proposed hours of use, would not cause any significant harm. This is especially so given the small-scale nature of the gym, which would not physically be able to cater for many customers at only 232 square metres. Condition 3 currently restricts the use of the operating hours to between the hours of 6 p.m. and 9:15 p.m. Monday to Friday, and 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturdays, Sundays and bank holidays. The applicant has applied to extend the hours to allow the D2 use to operate between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. Monday to Friday, 7:30 a.m. and 8 p.m. on Saturdays, and 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. on Sundays and bank holidays. Environmental Health have been consulted, and they do have some concerns over these hours, but they have asked for the hours to be reduced slightly so that they are 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Saturdays, and 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sundays and bank holidays. The majority of these increased hours is during the daytime, Monday to Friday, where the ambient noise levels in the area would be higher. The hours of operation changes would allow the use to close 45 minutes later in the evenings, Monday to Friday, open 1 hour earlier on Saturdays and close 3 hours later, and close 2 hours later on Sundays and bank holidays. The opening time on Sundays and bank holidays remains the same. The original planning permission for this site granted the gym initially was for a change of use from B1 and B8, an office and warehouse building, to a mixed use of B1, B8 and D2, which a gym falls within. Variations of conditions merely change the wording of the conditions on the original permission and do not change the authorised use. The hours of operation granted referred to the use as a whole and therefore restricted the whole of the building within these operating hours. The agent has requested that the conditions suggested by officers should relate to the D2 use only. However, officers consider that this would not be appropriate. Whilst B2 uses are considered B1 uses are considered acceptable in residential areas, also permitted is B8 warehousing, both of which would then remain unrestricted if we just condition it to the D2 use. The site is on the edge of a town centre and is in a sequentially preferable location for a gym use, but it's also surrounded by residential properties. And B8 uses in this area, which are part of the authorised use, and this is not to change, could cause significant problems if not restricted properly by condition. Officers therefore consider that the condition should remain as worded on the agenda. In regard to highway safety and car parking provision, objectors have commented that car parking on the site is already insufficient and that the increase would have a knock-on effect on parking and traffic in the area. Following the publication of the National Planning Policy Framework, the Council's supplementary planning guidance on car parking standards now only carries minimal weight. The standards were maximum standards in any case and were set to discourage the creation of masses of car parking, not to safeguard against insufficient car parking. Using the guide, however, as a rule of thumb, D2 uses, including gymnasiums, are recommended to have one space for every 22 square metres, and this use is to increase to 232. It's reasonable, therefore, to suggest a maximum of 10 spaces for this gym use. The area to be converted to a gym is currently B1, and using the standards in the guide again, this would require one space per 30 square metres, and this would require 7 or 8 parking spaces. The difference, therefore, between the two uses is 2 or 3 more spaces. As members may be aware, the gym is part of a smaller part of the Leisure Trust gym at Empire, and the car park that serves that development is shared by the workers of the Leisure Trust, based at the office of Wheat Street, and the customers of the gym at Empire on Leicester Road. That gym currently has 45 spaces for cars and 6 motorcycle spaces and 2 disabled spaces. In relation to car parking, therefore, it's considered that given the car parking standards now only carry minimal weight and that they are and always were maximum standards, the additional 2 to 3 parking spaces that the guide would allow for a D2 use over a B1 use is not a reason for refusal. In regard to highway safety, the Highways Authority have not objected to the proposal. There are no reasons for them, therefore, to have concerns over highway safety. It's considered that a refusal on highway safety or car parking grounds would be difficult to defend on any appeal and would not be justifiable reasons for refusal on this planning application. The recommendation is one of approval to amend the conditions as set out on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, just so that we're all clear, I'm sure everybody spotted it anyway, but the recommendation should read, recommended to grant planning permission subject to the conditions as printed. Yeah. Councillor Phillips.
To come here this evening by residents to lay down their concerns regarding the changes that are suggested. The pre-arranged environmental health visit to assess noise was at a time when the activities in the gym produced lower than average noise. It was witnessed by residents that noise from the gym during the visit didn't match the loud noises heard daily. As the full range of gym noise was not accessed, any approval of hours based on that visit shouldn't be valid or appropriate, and it is felt that we feel random visits at a range of different times of the day should be carried out before any approval of this proposal. The proposal to increase the hours of use more than threefold and to start at 7 a.m. weekdays is obviously excessive in a residential area. Few other businesses in the street don't open so early, late or even Sundays or make as much noise. A reason the 2016 proposal was passed was that the disturbance from the opening 13 hours 15 minutes per week gym and small gym area should not cause any significant harm. The difference in the question is regarding residential amenities at the present moment in time. With the increase of the hours, what is significant harm to the residents that actually live there now? If the proposal is passed to increase the opening hours by over 3 times to 97 hours a week and extend the floor space, this would not retain residential amenity as it is at the present moment in time. The early hours proposed and greatly extended weekend hours would give no period for peace for residents. The noise of the gym is worse with the weight lift and drop sessions, and that is what is primarily proposed to be used there. There is literally dropping very heavy weights on the floor. It is converted, raised building and unfit for purpose, and metal shutters. It's not brick built. The reverberations concern residents. What we're looking for is for a site visit. I don't think any residents, any planning officers have actually visited the gym or inside the gym, considered the insulation and also the hours. There was another gym where we didn't allow such early opening in Marlborough Road down to 7. Although every planning application has to be built on its merit, this is over usage of that gym in that area for the type of floor work and weights that are going to go on. The car park is already full by 10 o'clock in the morning because there is an overspill and it's used by the Empire Gym residents. There is residential parking area there, and if this is increased, we do in fact believe there will be more traffic usage in the area, putting more pressure on places in the street.
Mr. Nash.
Thank you, Chair. Since 2014, the site has provided as an admin base for the Leisure Trust, helping to coordinate seasonal sporting events and recreational events. I'd first like to clarify a point. The wording of the report suggests that this application is partly retrospective, with a larger gym area shown as existing on the plans. The reality is that the application before you seeks, in part, to correct a contention on the existing permission between the stated floor space limit of 45 and the plans which allow for 144. My client's been operating in line with those approved plans in good faith, and it's only upon our involvement did he become aware of that. Ultimately, the lack of complaint in the last 18 months demonstrates that noise and traffic concerns from this use are not of concern. Any complaints that have been received have been made after the application has been lodged. The increase in floor space is therefore not as grand as you might first imagine, and it would assist in accommodating the classes already held there. The effects of the use are also tempered by the nature of the use of the gym. It's not an ordinary gym where members can simply turn up and complete a workout. It's instead focused towards intensity training sessions, generally led and controlled by a qualified tutor. Consequently, there are large periods each day where the gym lies idle. The additional hours seek to provide flexibility for the carrying out of these sessions, meeting the weekday demand, which has been shown over the past couple of years both here and nearby at the Empire Gym. Again, a site that's successfully run without issues of noise or traffic concern. We've worked with and listened to the Council's EHO before submission and during assessment of the application, responding to their recommendation to further reduce the intended hours from that originally applied for, continuing to recognise that there is a balance to be struck between the living conditions of nearby residents and the operation of the business. It's perhaps disappointing that residents have quickly forgotten the unregulated B2 and B8 use which existed prior to 2014, with external storage and loading of goods and manufacturing on the site, as well as the associated transport impacts. The proposed use would still provide for a much improved impact in comparison, and it's notable that there is no objection from your officers. The officer notes that the site already provides for, would continue to provide for off-street parking. There are also numerous public car parks in the vicinity of the site, offering preferable alternatives. It's also an edge of town centre location, close to public transport and walking and cycling connections, so it's an ideal location when it comes to discouraging the use of private vehicle. The proposal before you tonight would assist in securing employment and facilitate healthy lifestyles and sporting activity close to the centre of the town, promoting key strands of the existing and emerging local plans. These factors carry significant weight in favour of the proposal, and with no substantiated harm in respect of highway safety or congestion, or in respect of noise and amenity, I hope you will agree that this proposal merits your support. Accordingly, we ask the committee grant permission tonight. Thank you.
Claire? So then, to enable the debate to take place, can I move the recommendation, which is to grant planning permission? Is that seconded? No? Any member? Councillor London?
Bemused. So I need some advice from Claire. I didn't know that Empire Gym had car parking spaces. I've never noticed them. I can't remember seeing any signs, and I've parked there as well, so I might have been parking illegally. I might have been parking in their spaces at the rear, because as far as I'm concerned, that was a public car park, and then the bit further down is for Dunelms. And you've got to get across the Leicester Road Bridge as well if you park there, when there's a perfectly good car park on Wheat Street, adjacent to the Justice Centre. So I don't know what all this is about parking and the allocation of parking to Empire Gym. And I would have thought if there's going to be allocation of parking, it might be for this offshoot of Empire Gym, actually in Wheat Street. But to my knowledge, I certainly haven't noticed, and I certainly don't know that if that's the case, and it worries me somewhat. And then the extended use, I did have a short period of time living in a bedsit down there after my divorce, and I remember this building, and it didn't look, I can't remember what was in it, but it didn't look very much structurally as if that it could take this sort of punishment. And I just wonder if there's been any stress loadings done on the floor, because if a banging up and down weights and stuff like that, but is the building actually capable and fit for the purpose? You probably don't know that, but that does bother me a little bit in terms of the safety of the people who are actually using this gym. So it's I don't think you can answer all that, Claire, but at the end of the day, perhaps you might ease my mind a little bit.
When I said that this gym has that amount of spaces, what I meant was in close proximity. They are public spaces, but there is that many in close proximity to the gym. So it's not really an overspill for Empire. I think it would work perhaps the other way round. In relation to the stress loading that you mentioned of the gym, that's not something that we can consider now as part of this planning application. The application is to vary conditions. The use has already been granted. We can't consider now whether the building is fit for purpose, whether it should be used or not for that particular purpose. All you're looking at is whether the hours can be changed and the floor area of the gym can be increased. That's all that relates to this application.
Thank you. I don't really understand the plans. We've got the plan on page 27. So we've got the large area there within the heavy black line. The largest part is the car park, I assume. And then there's a building at the back. And then there's a dotted line going along, which I'm not quite sure what that is. And then on the next page, you've got two plans, the existing and the proposed. Where do they fit into this? Are they in that building which backs onto the back gardens of the properties in Cooper Street? Are they on the first floor? And what?
Okay. The plan that's up on the screen now might help clarify that. The red line is the line to which the application relates, which is just the building. So the blue line is other land that the applicant has control over but is not part of this application. All you're looking at is the red line in association with this application. The plans on page 28 of the agenda are basically this end of that building.
So the rest of the building within the red line, is that gym space, office space? Is it only that first, when you say at that end, on the first floor, is that, Claire?
Right. The bit that says proposed plan would be the area of the D2 use only, which is down this end of the building. The remainder of it remains as per the previous planning permission, which is B1 and B8 uses. So the gym is only in the upper floor on part of the first floor. Okay.
Councillor Lloyd.
I mean, requesting they were going to have a site visit. I'll move that. Let's go and have a look at this down the side again. I should think that'll get defeated by our minds are thinking one thing and our heart are thinking the other. But can you explain to me what we haven't done or what we have done? I'm only reading 18 signatures, highway safety. They're complaining, and the use has already operated outside the allowed hours of use. What does that mean to us? What have they been doing? We've done nothing about it. What are they doing? They're using it, doing it anyway, whether we give them permission or not. What's going on? Can you tell us what 18 people living around there have put a signature asking these questions? I'll ask them for them.
Received a formal complaint about the hours of operation. So as an authority, we're only aware of it as a part of this particular planning application, and we would not be in a position to be able to take action against that whilst we're considering a planning application. If we were to receive a formal complaint about that, once this application has been determined, then we could investigate and take that further. I didn't say that we weren't going to do anything about it. What I said was we were only made aware of that as part of the determination of this application. Nobody told us before the application came in that that was actually a problem. If during the course of this application we were to start taking enforcement action against a breach of condition that we are currently considering, we would be considered unreasonable by a planning inspector if we were to proceed with enforcement action at that time. What we can do is, if you determine that this is an unreasonable application and the hours are to remain as they are, then we can pass that information on to our enforcement team after the determination of the application for us to begin the investigations.
Any other member? So a site visit's been moved and seconded. Does anybody wish to speak on that? No? Right, I'm going to take that and then see where that takes us. So I'm just trying to recall the reasons for the site visit, that was all. I think if I can from my memory, some of the reasons I heard was the harm that would be caused to residents. Oh, not probably. So the assessment of the harm caused to residents by altering the current use, which would affect the residential amenity, and that the proposed hours would be unsuitable within the residential area. Okay. Yeah? No? Well, I'm saying the council's got a different view, but from the site view. So, and also to have a look at the access to the site regarding the impact of the local area. So I'll be happy with those reasons which we propose for the site view. All those in favour of the site visit? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And against? Okay, so again there'll be a site visit prior to the next meeting. I don't have any items of any other business. Thank you for your attendance and declare the meeting closed.